Good morning. We're very excited to be here today. We've got a nice audience of folks here that are going to help us fend off some questions as we entertain some really great information. I'm very proud to introduce Devra Sheba. She's a registered dietitian with over 30 years of experience. 30. I mean, that's almost as many years as I have in dining. She attended the University of Illinois Urbana, the University of Missouri Columbia, graduating with a BS degree in home economics with an emphasis in medical dietetics. As a board-certified specialist in gerontological nutrition, that's a big word, but it applies to senior living. She's also a certified dementia practitioner and a certified Montessori care professional, and she currently serves as the senior manager of clinical services for Sodexo seniors. So she's way more than just a dietitian. She's involved with way other bigger things that I'm sure she's going to touch on today. Devra oversees daily clinical operations, promotes professional growth opportunities, and develops programming and performs timely audits for regulatory compliance. Her main focus is to make sure that she's made a positive impact on the lives of residents through staff education and listening to what residents and families have to say. Michelle Elliott, who is our site dietitian, plugs in with Devra on routine calls so she can stay abreast of things that are happening in our world. And we're also excited that Devra is here to help us do some training this afternoon as we work through trying to increase the quality of product and presentation for pureed diets. So we're going to do some training in the kitchen today. Thank you for being here to do that. So with that, and with Michelle Elliott in our audience and Sherry Doken, who is our certified dietary manager in healthcare, I present Devra. It's all yours.
Thank you, Judy, for that great introduction. And so I am very happy to be here today. My home base is Chicago, so I do travel in my role, and I get to visit with many residents, and that's one of the really great things about my position is I meet so many people, and just it helps me to understand just what's going on in our senior communities and be able to, like I said, I love listening to your stories, but also like your comments and being able to see what I can do to make things even better at times. And I do a lot to support communities, to support Judy and Michelle in making sure that our programming that we have at communities meets the needs. So I put together a very short presentation to try and address some of the questions that you so nicely passed down to Judy and Michelle, so you understand just what it takes to create menus and how we look at each menu and make sure that each community has options that work well for you. If I take a community that's up in Chicago, they may not like the same foods that you eat in Virginia or down in Texas. So each region has their own special foods. So I don't know how many of you come from a state outside of Virginia? Okay. Where did you live before? Connecticut. What was your favorite food that you remember growing up in Connecticut?
Well, we were a strong Italian family, so that just carries down.
Okay.
I always loved the clam-bakes and things like that we had in the summer.
Okay, so you bring that Italian preference for dishes with you. Someone else have their hands raised. Right here, yeah.
Minnesota and Michigan, and the food was more bland.
It was more bland, okay. And I know up in Minnesota, they liked heavy cream soups, and they like stews and pasties, which are those filled, they're like filled pastry shells with some meat mixture, right? So,
Like potatoes and beef.
Potatoes and beef, right. I remember those. But I remember putting together a list of foods that they love in Minnesota, and they certainly were much different than what they like in other regions, but very tasty. Who else have some favorite food memories? Foods that you grew up on?
I spent 40 years in Texas, so I miss my good Mexican food.
Your good Mexican food and barbecue too, right?
Yeah.
And being from Chicago, there's nothing like a Chicago hot dog. And I really have a problem with others putting ketchup on their hot dog because it's just not done in Chicago. Or we have Italian beef and, of course, pizza. Okay, so we all grow up with, regional foods that we love. So now here we are in our community, right? And how many of you cook for yourselves? Okay, a few still do, but for the most part, you're coming to our dining rooms for dinner, right? Okay. So imagine what a job it is to put together a menu, knowing that one person loves, food. She grew up in Texas. I love things from Chicago. You like the Italian, and you like the Minnesota kind of food options, and being able to make you all happy. Okay? So that's one thing we have to consider when we do a menu. We put together different tiers, and we do the basis, but that goes back to Judy and Michelle. They look at it and said, oh, but my residents don't really like foods like this, so what are a few favorites we can put in to address your preferences? So that goes on all the time when we create menus. All right, let's hopefully get this, there we go. So I want to help you understand how you can use all those great tools, the information that Judy has to make good choices. Look at some ways. I understand salt or sodium is a question that comes up here frequently. How much salt is in meals or in your recipes, and to understand a little bit more about our menus and recipes. So we know that if we're looking for a healthy eating, and I'm sure Michelle talks to you about this, from time to time, we need to balance our calories. So we're being active, we're eating healthy meals, and we balance that. Because too many calories, not enough activity, do you know what that leads to? Weight gain, right? And sometimes, we're not feeling well, or maybe we just don't feel like a big meal, and so we tend to then have less calories and we're still active, and so that's where we find we're losing weight. For some people that might be good, but for others that might not be a healthy goal for them. And of course, looking for foods that we should increase. Do we need more fruits and vegetables? Do we need to reduce foods? And what kind of foods would we think about reducing? Sweets, yeah. I know when my parents first moved into their independent living community, they were so excited because they were eating ice cream every night. And all of a sudden my mom's like, what is happening here? I don't usually weigh this much. And so we kind of talked a little. And it was those nightly ice cream sundaes that she was enjoying. But we had to reduce it a little and not have them every day. And of course, every 5 years, the United States puts out a new brochure, a manual that shows what it takes to be a healthy American. And they go from infancy, from babies, all the way up to older adults. And so we had new guidelines issued 2020, last year, that'll last for 5 years. And so these are the things that we support when we plan menus. Okay, limit added sugars. Okay, that's the cookies and the cakes and the pies. And so where we used to put that on the menu for both lunch and dinner, now we look at, okay, well, maybe we need to increase the fruits and vegetables. And so we might have fruit at a meal as the dessert versus a nice gooey piece of cake or pie or cookies. So we balance it out. Saturated fats, of course, we look at, what we have in our recipes, what we're cooking with. Once again, we're balancing our proteins. So we're looking at how many beef meals do we have a week, how many chicken, how many fish, to balance out that type of fat in our diet. The recommendations to limit sodium intake to 2,300 milligrams per day. Does anybody know in teaspoons how much that would equal? Okay, it's about a teaspoon of salt. A teaspoon of salt every day. Okay, so that's a low number, 2,300 milligrams. Average Americans can be 4 to 6 grams of sodium a day. Okay, so, or milligrams, I should say. So we really need to ask ourselves, what are we doing to keep our sodium down? It's healthy for all Americans. So are you the type that automatically reaches for the salt shaker and puts it on? No? Are you the type that just tastes your food first before you even reach for the salt shaker? These are things, and sometimes they're habits. Habits of reaching for the salt shaker. Or we talk about taste, and as we age, our taste acuity kind of gets less and less, and so we need more and more spices in order for foods to really impart a really good flavor. And if you've grown up where you were always adding salt to your cooking, sometimes you get in a community and we use less salt in our cooking. Foods taste bland. Something to get used to, all right? But 2,300 is a really low number. Our regular diet, okay, our regular menu has about 3 to 4 grams of sodium. Okay, it's not that far off of the 2,300. So if there are some small changes you can make in your choices, you can get it, pretty low. But as someone said, earlier when you were talking, we do need sodium, so we can't eliminate it. All right? And alcohol. Is that something that you once in a while partake in? A special event or a little wine or a cocktail now and then? So the recommendation is to limit alcoholic beverages to 2 drinks or less a day for men and 1 drink a day for women. Okay, so these are the recommendations that came out of the 2020 Diet for Healthy Americans. All right, so portion sizes. That's always a really good one to talk about. How Americans love their giant steaks or love that big piece of cake, okay? But is that what we need? No, we don't need those giant portion sizes. And, for the past several years, we've had our fast food restaurants competing against each other as to how big can we get our soda? How big can we get our burgers? How much bacon can we get on that burger? Okay, so there are trends. And there are a lot of people out there who love that kind of food, right? But is that something that would be an everyday choice? Definitely not. So I'm going to show you some examples of how portion sizes have changed over the years. Okay, so A chicken Caesar salad. How many of you think that salad is really healthy? Raise your hand if you think. Nobody thinks a chicken Caesar salad is healthy? Depends on the dressing, right. I am the type that when I go in a restaurant and I order a salad, I always say put my dressing on the side. And on those occasions I've forgotten to tell the wait staff, I end up with a salad that is soaked in salad dressing, and I don't get to taste the delicious vegetables. And so I always ask for it on the side, because that will make a difference. Okay, not only calories, but fat and sodium. So just by making a small change in how much salad dressing you're using, you've already made a good change. So here we have, they say 20 years ago, that's your chicken Caesar salad. And today you go in and they are huge. But I think a lot of the fast food restaurants give you a choice if you want a smaller portion or a larger portion. So they're helping. So the difference, okay, we're talking calories. Look at that, 390 calories versus 790 calories. Okay, so it's gone from a nice plate size to a huge bowl. And like you said, along with that, sodium and fat. Spaghetti and meatballs. Okay, 20 years ago, that's what your plate would look like. But our plates got bigger, and so today, going to a restaurant, you might get what's on the today list. A huge bowl of pasta and all that meat sauce on top of it. But once again, look at that. Okay, the portion 20 years ago is actually what we need. We don't need these giant portions of food. And so I put up there, you've got a whole day's worth of sodium just in that one large portion. And you've got a whole meal's worth of carbohydrates if you're watching your carbs. And that's just in one meal. Okay, not even thinking about what did I have for breakfast, what do I have for lunch, and do I have any snacks along with that? So that is just in one huge plate of pasta, and that's supposed to be one serving on top of it. So they've grown. All right, so salads. And we talk about being able to individualize what you are choosing at your meals. You always have a choice, okay? And this is how you could really control any special diet needs you have. All right, so if I take a salad, all right, and I put up there for sodium. If I take a salad, you know that the salad greens aren't going to contribute much to calories or the sodium or fat, but it's what goes on top. We mentioned before the salad dressing, but look at all those things that you can throw on your salad. You might be able to throw on some croutons, and that'll give you some sodium. But what if you throw cheese on? Okay, there's a sodium food. And bacon bits, and that's only throwing on 2 tablespoons. How many of you can stop at 2 tablespoons? Or you have to keep on going a little bit more. There's more sodium that adds to that salad, and fat as well. And then if you go to some other choices, you can make that salad full of different vegetables for the variety and for different nutrients. So you can see that your shredded carrots and your colorful green peppers really don't add much as far as sodium goes. So it's all what you add to that. If it's a salad that you're choosing for your main entree, think about what's going on it. Okay, and see if there's a way to, say, oh, could you, eliminate the bacon bits on it, or put my dressing on the side, and that way it'll help you to meet your own nutritional goals. Okay, so it's not the salad, and it's what goes on top of it that really makes a difference. All right. Oh, this is terrible. This is the mindful. Yeah, and unfortunately, they give us this information in light green or yellow, so it doesn't show up as well. But I think Judy said that there's a chart outside the cafeteria. So Mindful is Sodexo's platform on healthy meal choices. So what we look at is how many calories are on that plate. I believe it's 600 calories or less are to be on that whole meal, so you know that it's calorie controlled. It's low sodium, it's low in saturated fats, and it's higher in fiber. So have you ever seen on your menu, excuse me, a little colorful apple? Does it show up orange on your menus? Yeah. So that tells you that that recipe, that choice, is a very healthy choice for you to make because of the lower sodium, the lower fat, higher fiber, and the calories are lower. So I apologize for it not showing up really well here. You have to tell them to change the color of the poster because it doesn't show up as well.
How much sodium is in Mindful?
How much sodium? It goes by the, let's see if I have it. I can read it better. Here. Okay, so if we're talking sodium, it is for an entree or a side. So it's 800 milligrams or less. Okay? I think that's what the sodium is. It's really hard to read this here. So we have the entrees. So an entree versus a plate would be 550 calories. And it goes down depending on the size of the plate. So with an entree, it's 700 milligrams. So with fiber, we're looking at 3 grams of fiber for a plateful of Mindful food. Oops. All right. And have you ever passed out the Mindful chart?
No, that's what we have it on.
So you have it out there. How many of you have actually looked at that Mindful chart? Okay. It's always good to, there we go, to looking at that so you know that's what these recipes are composed of. Okay. Let's go on to a better looking screen. So Judy was nice enough to pass me on one of your menus. So I looked at it and I saw the nutrition information on there. How many of you read that information? Okay. So this is what we get off of our recipe. So in order to get that information, we have somebody who, that's their job, okay? They take the recipes and they plug it into their computer system and they're able to get the nutrition information. They base it on the USDA nutrient library. So they don't go to each package and say, oh, you know, your bread has so many calories, protein, fat, because nobody is standardized, okay? We all have different types of bread that we're buying. Same thing for all the products. So they use the USDA nutrient analysis program. And so you can see that, okay, for breakfast, we have blueberry pancakes. 200 milligrams sodium and 17 grams of carbohydrate. So I can go through each of the foods and see how much sodium. So do you notice anything about the sodium levels? They're pretty low, right? And so that would help you to make a really good choice if it's sodium that you're trying to monitor in your diet. What about, is anybody here watching their carbohydrates? We don't have anybody here today? Because that's another question. It's not only how much sodium's in my food, but how much carbohydrate is my food, which would be somebody that's trying to control something like diabetes or even trying to watch their weight. They want to know how much carbohydrate. And so this information will also be able to tell us how much is in their foods and whether they're on track for their choices. And the other thing, and it's a little hard to read here, underneath all the nutritional information, it is by serving. And so this soup was an 8-ounce serving, and that is what you'll get. What happens if you ask for a second bowl? Okay, it's going to double the sodium, double the carbohydrate, double the nutrients. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind. You know, what is a serving? Here we have this nutrition. Okay, so I know when I'm reading the menu that you're provided that it has so many calories, it has so much fat, how much cholesterol, the sodium, carbohydrate, fiber, and protein. So it also tells you then if it contains any of our major allergens or anything else that may be symptomatic for some of our older adults. And so we might say it contains eggs, wheat, soybeans, and gluten in that pancake. So if you were sensitive to gluten, would that be a choice for you? No. So reading that information is very important. I know that there's been questions about some of the spices and seasonings, such as garlic, onions. Okay, that is information that we can obtain. It's not listed on this part of our analysis program, but we have, we can go looking in our actual recipes and find that information out. So if you're one of those individuals that are really sensitive to certain spices and seasonings, that's something that Judy can help you with in providing the recipe and being able to see that. Okay. So make sure that you let them know that you want to spend some time looking at the recipes to note that. So a lot of information comes from what's on your menu. So I was hoping this would show up a little bit better on the screen, but here we have how would you read this information. So cinnamon baked apples for breakfast. Doesn't it sound delicious? It does. So now I want, I'm going to have that for breakfast. So I'm going to look at my my portion and what does it give me. And so I'm looking at sodium, 80 milligrams of sodium, okay, 23 grams of carbohydrate. But what else about this recipe? It contains milk. So if you're sensitive to milk or lactose, would this be a food that you would want to choose? No, so you'd look at some other options that we have at that meal, something that maybe is on the always available list, or what else, is on the menu. And same for the chicken dish, it contains soybeans. And that was a question, too, about whether or not we use soy in our foods. And did anybody here ask that question? Okay, so weren't quite sure whether or not you were looking for the textured vegetable protein kind of filler, or if you're looking for actual like soy oils or
Right, oils as well as either soybeans or any other soy type of product.
okay. So we don't typically use soy oils, more canola and olive oil, and even our oil that if we have some fried foods, it'll be a canola oil. Soybeans might show up, but they'd be listed as one of the ingredients. underneath the name of the recipe. So typically in an Asian type of recipe, we like to use soybeans, another source of protein.
So it's not like a 70-80% of the
No,
menu
No.
is soy.
no.
Repeat what she said.
She said that, so it's not like 70 or 80% of the menu would be soy. And it's not. Asian foods, soy sauce. So those are the ones typically that we'd see more soy used in.
We're using a lot more edamame.
Edamame, right. So once again, looking for it on the ingredients. Yes?
I believe that a lot of our recipes with soy will use canola oil as well. So if you see it contains soy, you could have been cooking with canola oil, which contains soy.
Can you repeat it?
Said that recipes that have canola, that would also contain soy.
A lot of our recipes say soy. I looked at it.
Yeah, if it's canola, it should be canola oil and not a vegetable oil mixture.
Chef did mention that we do
Yeah.
use some soybean oil, like in some of the salads and stuff, but, so his primary comment to that question was olive oil, soybean oil, and canola are the three.
Yeah. So if we're looking at spices and different seasonings, this lentil soup with cilantro and orzo, which sounds delicious to me, has cumin seeds, has turmeric, and has cilantro. Very flavorful type of seasonings. And so that's listed as part of the recipe ingredients. And then it'll say it also contains wheat and gluten. And that may be that they're using some type of flour in the recipe itself.
The pasta.
The orzo.
Yeah.
The orzo. Okay? So reading this information is really important. So here we have the pound cake down here. And it does say milk, eggs, wheat, soybean, and gluten. And I don't have that recipe right in front of me as to where the soybean comes from. Okay. So that'd be something that the chef could tell you whether they use the soybean oil or they're using the canola in the recipe at that time. So a lot of information here for most people to be able to determine what's in their, what these recipes provide. And reading that nutrition, knowing for the day that you want to get close to that 2,300 or 3,000 milligram mark, this will help you be able to kind of formulate your day's choices. Okay, so now we're going to go to the questions. I know what. Okay, we'll just put that up there. So questions. Guidelines for residents with high blood pressure, and I actually do have a slide up here. So the DASH diet has been one that is proven to help those with high blood pressure. And DASH stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. Very healthy diet, okay? So if somebody is following it, whether you have high blood pressure or not, this will be a really healthy diet for you. So once again, watching portion sizes, okay? Choosing whole grain breads and cereals and pastas. So if they're on the menu, or if you're looking for what type of bread to make your sandwich on, look for whole grain, okay? And the brown rice that's on the menu. So pay attention to that. So make most of your choices whole grain. Fresh fruits and vegetables. There are so many to choose from that if you eat a variety of fresh fruits and vegetables, you're going to meet your needs. Sometimes we're not looking to go for that steak or the chicken, but maybe we want to have nuts included in our diet. And those nuts also provide us with a healthy type of oil and proteins. And same thing for beans. Beans is another choice that we could make to getting protein in our diet. So you may not be eating a plate full of beans, but there might be some recipes that have beans in them, or salads. You can.
Yeah, as she's talking about beans, if you noticed our menu this last Monday, we've been trying to go to a meatless Monday. And so we had these wonderful tacos. It was a meatless filling. It was made with beans. This week we also have a black bean burger. And I can't tell you how frustrating it is when people turn up their noses. Why would we want to eat beans in a taco or put black beans as a hamburger? Well, for the very reason that we're talking about nutritionals is it's increasing your chance of better fiber and less fat. So, if you could help us talk to people to try things, because we don't just put them out there to have people turn up their noses. We're trying to help educate people on alternative ways to get better nutrients in their diet.
Yeah. So next time it's on the menu, help Judy out by trying it. They're really good. Okay, I make them part of my diet at home. And of course, fish. I love fish, and I would rather eat fish than beef or chicken. But some people turn their nose down at fish. Some types of fish will be stronger flavor than others. And so maybe you can get some recommendations from the chef or Judy on which fish to try first. But fish will provide us with healthy oils and a really good source of protein. And low-fat dairy products. Okay, making sure that you're limiting the amount of cheese you're eating during the week, looking at lower fat milk choices if you're choosing milk, as well as what are some other dairy products? Cottage cheese, okay, a low-fat version, and just making sure you get your 2 to 3 servings a day to get the calcium you need. And that's very important. We can't just eliminate dairy products from our diet. Okay, even if you are lactose intolerant or you can't drink milk, there are some other choices that you can have to get your calcium. They make all these different juices these days that have calcium added to them, and that's been a real benefit. Even cottage cheese and yogurt, really good choices, and help to get calcium into you. And of course, reduce the sodium in your diet, something that we're talking about. Making sure that we read through that nutritional information. And we did talk about some of the recipes that have higher sodium content today, and trying to figure out, why would they be higher sodium? And I'm going to take that message back to the Culinary Council and get their help in maybe changing those recipes a little bit. And then there's a question here about changes in the aging process in the digestive system. And I definitely take that into consideration when I'm helping plan the menus, knowing that probably not a good idea to have two recipes at the same meal that have a lot of tomato sauce or tomato products, because some people suffer from GERD, acid reflux, and so I certainly want to make the choices so there'd be better choices than two of those together. And I look at the foods that we're pairing together to make sure that they're flavorful and full of taste. But there's a lot of changes that go on as we age. Our taste acuity, a sense of smell changes, and sometimes we develop digestive disorders that affect nutrient absorption or affect what we can choose. So I always want to make sure our menu addresses that as much as we can for a general audience of older adults. Allergies, like I said, the allergies are listed on our menus to the most common allergens, and those are eggs, milk, soy, nuts, tree nuts, okay? They get separated out from peanuts, okay? So we want to look at those different allergens and make sure that they're identified. Anything outside of that, you know, that's a discussion you can have with Judy or Michelle to see, like I said, what our recipes contain, and certainly they can have you look through the recipes to get that information. Let's see what other question we have here. I think I have addressed all the questions. Are there any additional questions that you have that you thought about?